Sometimes there's just no creative way to introduce a topic like But by the time we're done here, we will walk through a DHCP server configuration on a Cisco router with a little flair for features, of course. The first one, the biggest one that I would say is if I can squeeze it all in the short amount of time, I'm gonna jam in DHCP relay into the same video. If not, I'll throw it in another video. Next one. So other features I want to do. So DHCP server config is actually pretty straightforward. You'll catch that quick. But I also want to show you how to exclude addresses. Like, don't hand those ones out because maybe it overlaps with something. I want to show you how to reserve addresses. Just like in the last video, I went and set up this switch as a DHCP client, but it's just sitting there like, it's out in the wind. So it will grab whatever address comes first, and I want to make sure it always gets a certain address. So we'll make sure that we get that reserved and get that set up and all ready to go. Ready? Cool. So here we go. Okay, so here's what we got. We got the network environment. As I mentioned in the last video, I set this guy up as the DHCP client. It's asking for an IP address. And remember, it's asking for it on VLAN 10 because in the last video, I deleted the VLAN 1 interface. It's gone, as in it doesn't have an IP address. And I went under the VLAN 10 interface. And again, you guys all know that's a switch virtual interface. And so I configured that for IP address DHCP. So it's sending broadcasts out all active interfaces saying, hey, I needed an IP address, but nothing is responding. So we're going to go here first. Let's do the base configuration and get that out of the way. First, let's do a DHCP server. And actually, I'm going to show you how to exclude addresses for good reason as one of the first things that we're going to do. Once you set up the DHCP server on a Cisco router, it's kind of like, here's the subnet and go. And it's like, oh, it starts handing out IP addresses. And then you're like, oh no. And you go back in and you're trying to exclude them, but it's already handed them out. Did I say reserve before? I meant exclude. So it's best practice to actually exclude what you don't want to hand out first, then go in and set up the rest of the DHCP server so you don't accidentally hand out something before you're ready to, right? So here we go. I'm going to go here, bring up my, I still have my connection that was to switch to just to make sure we're all on the same page. I am consoled in under a chicken to this router right here. That's going to be the DHCP server on the network. So let's get logged in and get my mouse out of the way. Privilege mode, good. Show IP interface brief just to get us ourselves oriented. This guy's got the internet connection. It's got the Metro E connection. Those are the two interfaces. And it has all the VLAN connections. So it is directly connected to every single one of the VLANs. Now I will say, let me just do a brief aside because it's going to be very relevant in a second. That eliminates the need for DHCP relay, right? Because if you look back here, it is connected to every VLAN. All the clients can send broadcasts, and they will all land on that DHCP server. So we'll configure DHCP relay in a different part of the network. I'll show you that in a second. So let's get into global config mode. First thing you want to do, best practice, is exclude what you're not going to use. The command is IPDHCP, and I'll hit the question mark. You can see a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, there's our relay, right? There's configuring a pool, but we're going to actually do excluded address first. And I'm going to say, I'm going to exclude, now let's look right here. I'm going to exclude, we know that we're using, .1 as the IP address of the router. This guy is .2, 10.16.0.1.2. This guy's .3. So why don't we just exclude .1, .2, .3? Sound good? So I'll fill in that low address right here, 10.16.0.1. Hit the question mark. What's the high address? 10.16.0.3. See, there's nothing else to type. Hit the enter key. I've now excluded what I don't want. Now, I'm going to go in and create the scopes. Let's do IPDHCP, and we'll say the pool will be, and I'll name this. So this will be, maybe we'll do, and it's a naming command. What do you want to name the pool? I'll say static devices. That's terrible. How about, obviously it's not static devices. So we'll say servers, right? And now what I'll do is I'll put V10 as my name so I can immediately associate that with VLAN 10. Okay. Now what? Well, now there's all your DHCP options. The first one is going to be, what network do you want to hand out? And we'll say, well, the network will be the 10.16.0.0, right? Because that is our network that we're setting up right here. That's our VLAN 10. So question mark, and it says, do you want to type in the network mask or the prefix length? Again, do you want to use dotted decimal, the 255, or do you want to use the CIDR, the /24, and which that one's easier for me. Enter. So the network is configured. Now, what about the default gateway? Because this configured the IP addresses and it configured the subnet mask. Now we need the default gateway, or default router in this case. So we'll say the default gateway is 10.16.0.1. Oh, and what about DNS servers? DNS servers, it's a good question. We'll do 8.8.8.8. We'll use Google as our first one. And I'm assuming we don't have any internal DNS servers here. 4.2.2.2 is our secondary DNS server, so we can do that. And what about? And that's where I'm just going to say all kinds of things. With DHCP has become pinnacle to our networks. I mean, the phone right here, it needs to get a certain DHCP parameter, often called DHCP option 66 or option 150, to tell it where it should go to register itself with a server that controls all of those phones. There's other options. We could get lost in this. We could go DHCP domain name. What is the domain name? And, that might be for an Active Directory domain. It might be like cbtnuggets.com, which means all of the DHCP clients. Do you guys know? Hang on. Do you guys know what? Let me show you. I'm not going to ask. Do you guys know what a domain name is as it relates to? I know you know what a domain name is, but I mean as it relates to a DHCP client. If I say this DHCP client has the domain name cbtnuggets, I'll just put cbt.com. What that means is anytime it does a DNS lookup, like it's trying to translate a name to an IP address, and let's just say I go to a command prompt, and type in ping Jeremy. I'll just put Jer. It automatically, because it was assigned the domain name, suffixes cbt.com on the end of that. So it will actually ping jer.cbt.com. Pretty cool, right? So I mean, these are all just features that we could add into that DHCP scope. And if these are just the common ones, right? I could go in and say DHCP option, and hit the question mark, and you can see all the options. And again, if you didn't know, every one of these is an option. Like the default router, default gateway, that's a DHCP option. DNS server, it's not. I believe DNS is an option 6. I think default router is option 3. Don't quote me on that, but they all are assigned a number. So if you know the number and it's not in that list, you can assign all your DHCP options right there. Good, cool. So we're good. We've got that. Oh yeah, I didn't finish my option. So I'm gonna do a show run. And let's do section DHCP. That just shows the section that has the word DHCP in it. Very handy command. So it says, here's your whole configuration, right? There's the subnet, There's your excluded address. So now I'm going to do a show IP DHCP binding. Woohoo! What is that? Well, I'm not going to give it away. You guys know what that is. Down chicken, run from the dinosaur. I'm going to have this guy plug into my switch and come back here. Whoop, press the enter key a couple times. Show IP interface brief. And I'm going to have VLAN 10 right there. Bam! You can see DHCP. It was assigned that address. So now that's good to go. Now, before we go back to the router, I want to show you one more thing. I want to get another device and get an IP address on it. So I'm going to take my Mac and move a chicken aside. I got a dinosaur jumping off the Ethernet cable. We're going to jack this into port 21, which in a previous skill I assigned that on this access switch to VLAN 10. Bam, just like that. You can see pretty quick. It grabbed an IP address via DHCP. Not sure if you can see that too well. It's nice and glary. But regardless, we'll be able to see that now on the router. So hang on, I'm all over the place. Let me grab my console cable. I'm going to come back here to the router. Click. Come on, get there. Good. Then I'm going to come back here to the console port. Oh, get my mouse in there. And do a show IP DHCP binding. Because if you don't know this, I'm going to show you something. I think it's dumb. But if you don't, once you understand how it works, you'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. But it's still, this engineer probably doesn't work for Cisco anymore. So the show IP DHCP binding shows what leases have been handed out. Okay, so right there, so this is my Mac. Let's start there because you'll see why. This is my Mac, 10.16.0.5. I don't know if you can see that right on the screen. It's there. And then you see, okay, well, right here is the MAC address. But wait a sec. What? This isn't a normal MAC address. This is like, 2 characters too big. A MAC address should be like this. What's the 21? Well, believe it or not, that's actually the wrong question. The question is, what's the 01? See, here's the idea. Cisco on their DHCP table shows the client ID, the hardware address, so that's the MAC address, and the quote-unquote username. See, in DHCP, so when the client says, hello, I need an address, they can put all kinds of stuff in that request, and Cisco actually says, I'll take that stuff and I'll put it right here, which, again, I could see is kind of handy, but is just downright confusing. So the reason I said 01 is the question is because that is the universal client ID for an Ethernet based system. So if you have a Windows system, a Mac system, an Xbox 360, I don't care what you got, it's going to send across and say, I am a 01. I'm an Ethernet based system. This is actually the MAC address of the Macintosh, of the Apple computer that we're looking at. But of course, the dots are all in the wrong place, right? Now you might look and go, okay, well, what is that? Yeah, that's the switch, right? This is the Cisco switch that asks for an IP address, and this is all of its stuff. Now, so here's how it works. This, in any Cisco device that asks for DHCP, is actually, well, here, let me show you. I'm going to go to my web browser. I'm going to open up Firefox. Pop that in here. We're on Google, and I'm going to go to a hex to ASCII converter because we're seeing it in hex right now. Got a nice little converter. Yeah, perfect. A nice little converter right here. If you look right here and I say, okay, well, let me take this right there, come back here to the converter and paste it in and say, well, that's the hex. Show me what that is in ASCII. Oh, you see. So what that is the word Cisco in hexadecimal form. This, starting right there, is the actual MAC address of the switch. All this stuff afterwards is stuff like the ports, the port that the request went out on, the port that's coming in on. Like, for instance, you just grab this. This is what VLAN it belongs to. So I go back here, paste it in. That's the hex. Whoa. Obviously, with a line break messing me up there. Let me just see if I can. Oh, there we go. Dot convert comes up. Oh, that's actually converted to VLAN 10. So what it is the DHCP request for Cisco devices has a whole bunch of other stuff in there. Like, hey, I'm a Cisco device. Hey, this is my VLAN. Hey, this is my port number. And in the middle of all that, and just for your records, you won't, by the way, if you're going for certification, you won't need to know this. But real world, it will confuse the daylights out of you. This right here, these 12 characters, is the actual MAC address of the request being sent. Okay, goodness gracious. I'm not going to be able to show you DHCP relay because there's still one more thing I want to show you. I want to show you how to reserve a MAC to IP address mapping. Pretty simple on other vendors' implementation. Cisco takes a little work. You'll see what I mean here. So I'm going to do a show run, and I'll do a section DHCP, right? Look at that. We've got the excluded address. This is the section of configuration that we have for DHCP. And right there. So I go, okay, I've got this section created. Now I want to make sure that this Apple computer right here, let's just say this guy right here, always gets the same IP address. I go in and I create an all new DHCP pool. IP DHCP pool. And we put a nice name there, Jeremy's Apple All right. Why am I take a look at these apples? What? I can't even think of the saying. I'm so dumb. So right here. So what is it? Yeah. Look at. I got your apples. I don't know what it is. So that's so. What am I talking about? Client. So the what we're going to do here is say the hardware address is actually right here, but we're going to fix the periods because it won't take it that way. Boom, 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 boom. There you go. All right. Second thing is we've got the host. So I'm going to say the hardware address will actually go to the host, and you're going to see something go very wrong right here. I'm going to take this, copy and paste it in, and say the subnet mask for that will be a /24. Enter. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. There's already a binding for that in the table. So you literally have to go back and say, oh, okay, well, let me do a show IP DHCP binding and go, okay, so I got a clear IP DHCP binding, and I can go, and by the way, one of the reasons I wanted to show this to you is show you how painful doing these reservations are, but also to show you this is a handy command. Clearing the IP DHCP binding wipes all the table if you want to do an asterisk, or I can just say, just for that one client, right? We'll wipe that guy out, go back in, we'll do the Jeremy's Apple, and right there's the host. Show running configuration section DHCP, and we've got Jeremy's Apple right there, host bound to this MAC address. That's now a reservation. When I do the show IP DHCP binding, what do I see? An infinite Lisa expiration, because this is a manual entry in that table. Good. So Cisco's DHCP implementation, good, but a little cumbersome, at least compared to a lot of the other vendors that are out there. But that being said, it is an amazingly stable implementation that you can use. So you've now seen how to do a DHCP server configuration on a Cisco device with a little flair for features like excluded address, DHCP reservations, and a little knowledge of how to verify what addresses are there and clear the binding table. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.